So once more, this of course isn't my Fallout 76 mystery unboxing video, but with the beta presumably being very soon, it's safe to say that will be one of the next videos you will see, alongside of course gameplay of Fallout 76 through the beta, and potentially a few more news updates as we approach October. This video is however solely focusing around the Game Informer article, The New Wasteland, What to Expect from Fallout 76. As always, the article and source of this content will be in the description, alongside the usual links to the gameplay and trailers for Fallout 76 that are used in this video. Regardless, without further ado, let's get right into this. The start of the article offers a brief look into what Fallout 76 actually is, which is of course helpfully written for those who've been living under a rock. The rest of the article also provides us with some new information and insights. As discussed in previous interviews, however, Bethesda have confirmed that none of the NPCs you encounter will be humans, something, as I said, that we've already been over a good few times now. But in this article they have however said that you will run into other characters, such as robots. Some of these may be enemies that you may have to deal with, but others are going to be quest givers. You won't be able to interact with these NPCs in the conventional ways, as you won't have the regular dialogue choices to steer the conversation or mission in a different way. They however again reiterated the fact that they want the players to be the real storytellers. I'm starting to notice a theme with that. They do keep referencing that quite a bit, so whether that goes down well, we will have to see. The article then goes on to talk about how Bethesda want the game to be a survival experience. It is still a game driven by quests. The first quest is then explained by Todd Howard, who goes on to say, "When you emerge from the vault, you receive a transmission from the Overseer. She left before everybody," Howard says. "She left secret instructions for you, and that's the kind of jumping on point for what we call the main quest. At the end of it, you launch the nukes. The nukes are a game system, but they are also a part of the main story." So something we've heard a little bit about already, but of course they are now getting further into confirming these final details as we approach the last month between the game's release. This quest line is said to be something you can't easily get through, and is apparently an integral part of the story that takes players across the whole of West Virginia and concludes with the player being required to be a very high level. And even if the main quest line is all that you do, you will still receive optional quests along the way, where you will then end up with a menu full of missions to complete at any time. Given the nature of the game, you can jump ahead in parts and go back to others, Howard adds. Previously mentioned is also the way that you receive quests. These aren't just gained by NPCs, you will get these in holotapes, notes, terminals, and even when nearby to notable locations, which are supposedly very well spread out, but still more common than in any Fallout game, partly due to the gameplay space being 4 times bigger than its predecessor. Perks in the game were also brought up again, overlapping with a lot we already know. However, they also mentioned events, something they've been very quiet about thus far. These events are said to be proximity based, and when you approach one, it starts broadcasting for help, with Todd saying it's like a multiplayer timed quest. The article then goes on to mention that you'll be alerted of events occurring nearby, or you may even see some appear on your map. They are mostly geared towards teams, but some may require more players who will join up in a certain area of the map. Despite being relatively tight-lipped about this, we already know that some of these events are scheduled for specific places at specific times. Others will, however, of course, be random. A bit like the PvP elements I mentioned in an earlier video, Gardner from Bethesda has noted that events often give the best rewards. So if you're looking for the best loot and don't have a firm grip on crafting, you'll want to engage in these multiplayer events, as most of these cannot be done solo. The article then goes on to detail a little bit more about the team aspect of the game. Up to 4 people can team up together. All of the content factors in group dynamic. The team leader can queue up a mission which every party member sees and can engage in if they so choose. Should you get separated from your friends, or need to travel great distances to your settlement or a hub to resupply your gear, you can immediately fast travel back to any of your teammates. They also mentioned that if you are in a group, the first player in sets the level range. If that player leaves the area, the next player in changes that level. Bethesda says the game is divided into 6 regions, but wouldn't give specifics for each. This really is an interesting dynamic. Instead of leveling the whole zone around the group of players' levels, this now depends on one person. I mean, if you play regularly in a group and log on at roughly the same time, and rarely play out of the said group you're in, this shouldn't really be an issue. Of course, for people who've played games like The Division, which I believe I may have mentioned before, but of course that's not what they're doing with this at all, because that's normally how games work with that. Same with games such as Destiny. However, this isn't sort of leveling it based on everyone, this is basing it on one person. So it's quite interesting, but of course, like with many things, it's only time that will tell if this is actually a good change to the game. Now again, something that's been revisited by multiple publications: server size and private servers. Bethesda have confirmed that it will be 24 players on one server on a map, as I said, that is 4 times the size of Fallout 4. You'll see people throughout your adventures, but they don't want this to be repetitive. When asked about private servers, Bethesda have said that the game is not launching with them, but we can assume that they are more than likely going to be added at some point, given the similar response in each interview and article that does come out. They did also, however, hint in this article that there may be factions with a larger number of players being supported, but this is something that they'll answer later, according to Todd, which, let's face it, if you know anything about Fallout's PR, it's basically a yes. After reiterating their explanation of how PvP will work, they confirmed that the aforementioned group event will have PvP disabled, with Gardner explaining that if all of these random people are fighting a giant monster, you don't want to get hit by a stray bullet and then be in PvP. We wanted to make it an intentional thing, which of course is very, very good. We obviously wouldn't expect friendly fire to be on for these sort of events, especially if there's a large group of people. The last thing they want is their events being ruined by someone who is of course going against the team aspect of this. But they've noticed that before it's come out, along with a lot of other things so far. Of course the beta will tell if there is anything they have missed, but so far they do seem to be covering a lot of ground with a lot of worries and concerns people have. However, moving on to the final part of the article, aptly named Rebuilding America, we learned there's now a lot more harvesting, with harvesters and things like that for regenerating resources. For example, if you find a deposit of aluminium, you can harvest those resources. That's basically all they've said about that, but they have mentioned of course that there is ways to get resources now. As he's said there, with regeneration, there's going to be more places where you can get more things. So whether this is chopping down trees for wood or anything like that, it's not quite clear, but they do have more harvesting, which means you may be able to get things for your camp without just looting locations. You can even get them from the land itself. The camp building is also said to be very similar to Fallout 4's settlement mode, which of course a lot of us expected, minus the fact that teammates can now build with you and combine camps to form a larger structure. But of course everyone who built needs to be online for the camp to fully show, with Bethesda obviously saying in their anecdote that they have done this and built a small city. So with teams of 4 being able to play, potentially even 2 teams of 4 getting together, it's not necessarily restricted to who you can play with, but you can only play in a group of 4. So you could potentially have 2 groups building together, which, 8 people, that's a third of the server. So that does sound quite promising if you can build in these little groups, but of course you just need people to stay online. There's now also public workshop spaces, different to Fallout 4 again, that Todd says feel like event zones. You can take these areas over and they have a large number of supplies, and there are enemies that will attack these spots. The camp there will be temporary though, and of course when you leave, another player or team can claim it. Your camp can also be used by other players not in your team. However, Bethesda is said to be unsure on how this will work currently, so of course I won't go too far into speculation of this. To conclude this article, Todd's comment on the future of Fallout 76 seems very promising. Usually when we finish a game, we're pretty sick of it. We don't want to see it again. With this one, because of the other players, we're really excited to play it when it's out. That's when it's really alive. and with the beta potentially being released in as little as a week, this is very, very close to being a reality now. Anyway guys, that is it for this video. Make sure to leave your thoughts on everything discussed below, and if you enjoyed, maybe leave a like, and if you really enjoyed it, please feel free to share, as there will undoubtedly be a lot more Fallout 76 content very, very soon. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, thank you very much for watching, and peace.